Get him out of my courtroom. Arrest that boy now. Judge Clarice Mallow slammed her gavel down so hard it cracked the wood beneath it. Her sharp voice echoed through the large, quiet courtroom as two police officers rushed forward, grabbing the shocked teenager from behind. He hadn't done anything. He had only just stepped forward to give a statement. His name was Tyler Jackson, just 15 years old, black, and innocent. The courtroom gasped. Tyler's mom screamed from the back bench, trying to leap forward, but two bailiffs held her back. Her son's eyes darted from the judge to the officers, completely confused, his mouth open like he was trying to form words but couldn't. Judge Mallow was red in the face, her eyes wild, as she pointed down at him like she had caught a criminal in the act. "That boy tried to bribe the court," she shouted. "He's guilty. He should have never been allowed to speak." But what happened next stunned everyone. As Tyler was being led away, another officer, Detective Ramirez, stepped into the room, holding a tablet high in his hand. "Wait," he yelled, loud enough to cut through the chaos. "I have proof. Judge Mallow, you're under arrest for falsifying court evidence." Gasps filled the room again, louder this time. And then, just like that, the gavel that once had all the power dropped from her hand. 1 month earlier, things were different. Much different. Tyler Jackson was just another regular high school kid from East Briarwood. He liked sneakers, video games, and eating cheesy fries with his friends after school. He had a small scar under his left eyebrow from a bike fall last summer, and his dream was to be a music producer someday. He lived with his mom, Angela Jackson, who worked double shifts at the hospital, and his little sister, Mia, who was just 9 and already better at math than him. That Friday had started like any other. Tyler had just finished basketball practice when his phone buzzed. It was a message from his friend Jamal. "Yo, you coming to Marcus' party tonight?" Tyler grinned. "Yeah," he texted back. "Don't start without me." The party wasn't wild. It was more like a backyard hangout. Music, soda, a few jokes, and kids trying to act cooler than they really were. Around 10 p.m., a few guys Tyler didn't recognize showed up. They weren't from their school, and they looked older, probably college age. One of them, a tall white guy with a neck tattoo and a gray hoodie, pulled something shiny from his backpack. "What's that?" someone whispered. "Chill," the guy said. "Just something to keep things interesting." It was a gun. Tyler backed away immediately. "Yo, man, that's not cool," Tyler said, raising both his hands. His heart started beating faster. Guns weren't toys, and he wanted no part of whatever was going down. A few other kids started to back off too, their laughter fading into nervous whispers. The guy with the gun, people started calling him Blade, grinned like it was funny. "Relax, it's not even loaded," he said, waving it around like a toy. But the mood had changed. Tyler grabbed his backpack and tapped Jamal on the shoulder. "Let's bounce." Jamal didn't argue. The two slipped out the side gate and started walking home. They didn't get far. Sirens screamed through the night. Red and blue lights flashed across the houses. A police car screeched to a stop in front of them. Another one followed from behind. Within seconds, they were surrounded. "Hands up, now," shouted a voice through a loudspeaker. "What the?" Tyler froze. "We didn't do anything." "Down on the ground. Now." The next few minutes were a blur. Tyler and Jamal were pushed to the pavement. Cold cuffs snapped around Tyler's wrists. His cheek pressed against the ground. Gravel bit into his skin. "What is going on?" He kept asking. No one answered. The officers found nothing on them. No gun, no drugs, nothing illegal. But it didn't matter. At the station, after hours of sitting in a cold room, Tyler learned that someone had anonymously reported him as the suspect with the weapon. No one mentioned Blade. No one seemed to care about the actual person who brought the gun. Tyler's mom showed up in tears, furious, demanding answers. But instead of being released, Tyler was told he'd have to go to court. That's when they heard the name, Judge Clarice Mallow. Angela Jackson's face went pale. Everyone in East Briarwood had heard of Judge Mallow. She was known for being tough, but also for something else, whispers of bias, strange rulings, and long sentences, mostly for black kids. Nothing ever stuck, but everyone knew. People just didn't talk about it too loud. Still, Tyler's mom believed in the system. She hired a lawyer, Mr. Green, a tired-looking man with too many cases, and promised her son everything would be fine. Tyler spent that weekend at home, barely speaking. His little sister, Mia, kept trying to cheer him up with her drawings, but he couldn't smile. Not when he knew the judge he was going up against had a reputation for being unfair. Monday came too fast. The courthouse was huge and cold. Everything echoed. People whispered as Tyler walked through with his mom, lawyer, and Jamal, his only witness. Tyler had decided he would speak for himself. He didn't want to be silent. He wasn't guilty. He wasn't going to let someone paint him like a criminal. As they sat in the courtroom, Judge Mallow stared at him from the bench. She wore thick glasses and a heavy robe that seemed too big for her. Her mouth was twisted in a smirk like she already knew what she was going to decide. The trial began. Tyler sat still, his heart pounding as the prosecutor, an older white man, read out charges with words that felt like they belonged to someone else. Possession of a deadly weapon, intent to threaten, endangerment. Tyler wanted to scream. Jamal was called to the stand. It wasn't Tyler, he said clearly. There was another guy, older. He brought the gun. Did Tyler touch the weapon? The prosecutor asked. No. He left as soon as he saw it. Judge Mallow looked unimpressed. Her fingers drummed on her desk like she was bored. Then it was Tyler's turn. He stepped up to the front and took a deep breath. I didn't do it, he said, loud and clear. I've never even held a gun before. The guy who brought it, we didn't even know him. I told my friend we should leave, and we did. Judge Mallow's eyes narrowed. Are you trying to lie to this court, young man? No, ma'am, Tyler said, confused. That's not what the evidence says, she snapped. Tyler blinked. What evidence? The judge lifted a folder from her bench and waved it. A sworn statement, she said, from a witness who says you brought the gun. Tyler's lawyer stood up, frowning. We weren't given that document in discovery. I received it this morning, the judge said quickly. It's valid. That's all that matters. Tyler could feel his throat tighten. That's not true. I never. Enough, she shouted. You're clearly guilty. You've lied under oath. That's perjury. That happened. She slammed her gavel. Get him out of my courtroom. Arrest that boy now. Two officers surged forward, grabbing Tyler. His mom screamed. Tyler twisted in their grip, trying to speak, to shout, but he was too stunned. That's when a voice rang out. A loud, sharp voice from the back of the courtroom. Wait! Detective Ramirez stormed in, holding up a tablet. I have proof, he said, breathing heavily. The judge is lying. That statement, he pointed at the folder in her hand, was fabricated. Judge Mallow froze. I traced the file's origin. It was written in her own office. By her. She tried to frame this boy. The courtroom went silent. The two officers holding Tyler looked at each other. What? One of them asked, confused. I'm placing Judge Mallow under arrest, Ramirez said, stepping forward, for obstruction of justice and falsifying evidence. Judge Mallow's face twisted in panic. You can't. I'm the judge. This is my courtroom. But it was too late. Tyler stood there, shocked, watching as the same cuffs they tried to put on him were now being fastened around the judge's wrists. And just as it seemed like justice had finally turned in his favor, from the side door, a shadow moved quickly. A man in a gray hoodie, the same one from the party. Blade was there, watching, smiling. And then he ran. Tyler's eyes widened. That's him. That's the guy with the gun. The courtroom exploded into chaos once again. Police rushed out after him. Tyler wasn't safe yet. Not even close. The doors of the courtroom burst open as officers chased after Blade, their boots pounding against the marble floor of the courthouse. Tyler stood frozen, his heart still racing. His hands trembled, not because he was scared now, but because everything was happening so fast. 1 second he was the criminal, the next the judge was in cuffs. And now the real bad guy was escaping right in front of everyone. Detective Ramirez leaned over to the nearest officer. Secure the judge and get her out of here. Put her in holding. I want no communication with anyone until we search her office. Yes, sir. The officer nodded and led Judge Mallow out of the courtroom. Her angry screams echoed down the hallway as she kicked and shouted like a child throwing a tantrum. You'll all pay for this, she yelled. I'm a federal judge. You're ruining your careers. But no one cared anymore. Back in the courtroom, Tyler looked around, still cuffed. Ramirez noticed. Get those off him, the detective said quickly. An officer hesitated for a moment, glancing toward the empty judge's bench, then obeyed. The cuffs clicked open, and Tyler shook out his sore wrists. Angela Jackson rushed forward and wrapped her arms around him, sobbing into his shoulder. You're okay, baby. I told you, Mom, Tyler whispered. I didn't do anything. Ramirez knelt beside them. Tyler, I'm sorry. I should have caught this sooner. Why were you even here? Angela asked, wiping her tears. You weren't assigned to this case. Ramirez nodded slowly. I wasn't, but something didn't sit right with me. Judge Mallow's rulings in cases like this always felt too convenient, too one-sided. So I started watching. And then I got an anonymous tip yesterday. Told me she was planning something. Anonymous? Tyler asked, confused. I don't know who sent it, but it had a file attached. Said she was going to submit a false witness statement today. When I cross-checked the metadata, it showed she wrote it on her personal work laptop. I had to act fast. That's when the bailiff burst back into the courtroom. He got away. The man panted. Blade. He was out the back exit before we could stop him. Jumped into a car and took off. Ramirez cursed under his breath. Tyler's fists clenched. We have to find him. He's the one who started all this. He could do it again. Hurt someone else. Ramirez looked at him. We will, but I'm going to need your help. That night, the news exploded. Breaking. Judge Clarice Mallow arrested for courtroom corruption. Every station had the story. Videos of her being walked out in cuffs played on repeat. People online were furious. Hashtags like hashtag Justice for Tyler and hashtag Mallow Exposed trended for hours. Commentators debated whether the judge's old cases should be re-examined. But for Tyler, it wasn't over. Not even close. At home, he tried to eat dinner, but every bite tasted like sand. He sat at the table with his mom and Mia, who was unusually quiet. You okay? He asked her softly. She nodded. You're not going to jail, right? Tyler smiled a little. Nope, not anymore. Good, she said, sliding a drawing across the table. It was a picture of him wearing a superhero cape. You're my hero. He didn't say anything. He just hugged her tightly. Angela sat across from them, her face worried. This Blade guy, why would he come to the courthouse? That doesn't make sense. I've been thinking about that too, Tyler said. Maybe he wasn't there just to watch. Maybe he came to make sure the judge stuck to the plan. You think they knew each other? She asked. It's possible, said a voice from the door. They all jumped. It was Ramirez. Sorry, he said, holding up a hand. Didn't mean to scare you. I just needed to talk. And I brought something. He stepped into the kitchen and placed a manila folder on the table. Tyler opened it slowly. Inside were printed screenshots, text messages between an unknown number and Judge Mallow. Tyler read them aloud. Unknown. The kid shows up. You know what to do. Judge Mallow. Already handled. Evidence submitted. Unknown. Good. I'll be there to make sure. Tyler looked up. That's Blade. That has to be him. Ramirez nodded. We traced the number to a burner phone. No ID. But we have security footage from outside the courthouse. He's seen arriving in a black SUV, no plates. So now what? Angela asked. Now, Ramirez said, we track him down. And you, he pointed to Tyler, are the key witness. You're the only one who saw him at the party and at court. Tyler felt his chest tighten. You want me to testify? You don't have to, Ramirez said gently. But if you want to help bring him in, it'll go a long way. Tyler nodded slowly. I want to. Over the next few days, things moved fast. Judge Mallow was officially suspended from her position. Investigators uncovered more evidence. Emails, hidden messages, and even payments she received through fake accounts. It turned out she'd been working with a group of criminals for years, helping frame innocent kids in exchange for bribes and favors. But Blade still hadn't been found. Tyler's school was buzzing with whispers. Some kids treated him like a hero. Others avoided him. Even some teachers didn't know how to talk to him. One even said, "You're lucky you got out of it," as if Tyler had won a prize. He wanted to scream. He wasn't lucky. He was almost ruined. And Blade was still out there. Late one night, as Tyler lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Then he saw the message. You talk, you disappear. Just like that judge. Don't play with fire, kid. Tyler sat up fast. His heart pounded. Another message came in seconds later. I see you. He ran to his window, yanked the curtain aside, and stared into the darkness. There was no one there. No car. No lights. Just silence. But then, across the street, near the corner lamppost, a figure stood. Tall, wearing a gray hoodie. Blade. And he was watching. Tyler stepped back quickly, almost tripping over a chair. He grabbed his phone, heart hammering, and dialed Ramirez. It rang once, then twice. Then, Detective Ramirez. He's here, Tyler whispered. He's outside my house. Ramirez's voice sharpened. Don't move. Stay inside. Lock your doors. I'm on my way. Tyler hung up and did exactly that. But even as he turned the lock on the front door, something crashed behind the house. Glass. Breaking. A shadow moved near the back window. And then, a foot stepped through. Blade was inside. Tyler's breath caught in his throat. His body froze. Just for a second. Then every part of him screamed move. He spun away from the front door and bolted down the hallway. Mom. Mia. He shouted, his voice cracking. He's inside. Get in the room. Lock the door. Angela Jackson was already rushing out of her bedroom in her night robe. Hair wrapped up, eyes wide with fear. What? Whose? Blade. Tyler shouted. He broke in. Mia screamed from her room as Tyler grabbed her by the arm and pulled her toward their mother. Angela scooped her up, turned, and sprinted back toward her bedroom, slamming the door shut and locking it just as... Crash! Blade kicked down a small table in the hallway, stepping into the house like a ghost in the shadows. His hoodie was pulled low over his face, but Tyler saw his smirk under the dim light. Calm. Cruel. Didn't I tell you to stay quiet? He said softly, almost like a whisper. You should have listened, kid. Tyler backed away slowly, putting himself between Blade and the locked bedroom door. You're not going to touch my family, he growled. Blade pulled something from his hoodie. Not a gun this time, a knife. Long, sharp, reflecting light from the hallway lamp. I'm not here to hurt your family, Blade said. I'm here to send a message. You talk, you vanish. Simple. Tyler glanced toward the living room. His phone. He dropped it on the couch when he ran. Ramirez was on the way. He had to stall. You were working with her, weren't you? Tyler said, trying to keep Blade talking. Judge Mallow. You framed people together. Blade chuckled, twirling the knife once in his hand. Man, you're smarter than you look. Most kids don't figure it out until it's too late. Why me? Tyler asked, inching toward the phone. Why'd you come after me? Because you saw too much, Blade said. You left the party early. You and your friend. Then you walked right into her courtroom, ready to talk. He laughed. That wasn't part of the plan. Tyler lunged toward the couch. Blade was faster. He grabbed Tyler by the hoodie and yanked him back, slamming him into the wall. Tyler gasped, pain shooting through his shoulder. The knife glinted in Blade's hand. I warned you, Blade said, raising the blade. Tyler's eyes widened. Bang! The front door flew open. Drop the weapon, Ramirez shouted, gun drawn. Two officers stormed in behind him. Blade spun toward them, but it was too late. One officer tackled him to the ground. The knife clattered across the floor. Tyler slumped to the ground, heart pounding like a drum. His mom and Mia burst out of the bedroom, just as Ramirez slapped cuffs on Blade's wrists. You have the right to remain silent, Ramirez said. You're under arrest for attempted murder, witness intimidation, illegal possession of a weapon, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Blade was still smiling. Doesn't matter, he muttered. You'll never stop it. Mallow is just one piece. You think I work alone? Ramirez froze. What did you say? Blade grinned wider. It's bigger than her. You think I care about some judge? She was a pawn, and there's more coming. Tyler's stomach dropped. More? Ramirez stared at Blade for a long moment. Who else is involved? But Blade went quiet. Didn't say another word. Didn't have to, because what he said already changed everything. The next day, the Jackson home was swarmed with police and crime scene investigators. The back window was taped up, glass still littering the kitchen. Officers dusted for fingerprints. Ramirez stayed the whole morning, making sure everyone was safe. Tyler sat on the front steps with a blanket over his shoulders, watching as Blade was loaded into a squad car. You did good, kid. Ramirez said beside him. You kept your family safe. Not many people your age could do that. Tyler didn't answer right away. He was thinking about what Blade said. It wasn't over. What if he's telling the truth? Tyler asked. What if there are more? Ramirez nodded slowly. That's what we're going to find out. I already contacted federal investigators. If there's a network, we'll dig it up. Tyler looked down at his scraped knuckles. I'm not safe, am I? We'll protect you, Ramirez said. But yeah, if there's more of them, you're a target. Tyler nodded. He was done being scared. I want to help, he said. Ramirez raised an eyebrow. Help how? Anything. I'll testify. I'll answer questions. I'll do interviews if I have to. Whatever it takes. I'm not going to let them ruin more lives. Ramirez smiled, but it was a tired one. You sure you're ready for that kind of spotlight? Tyler looked out at the street. I didn't ask for it, but it found me. So yeah, I'm ready. Later that night, as Tyler sat in his room, going through a folder of court papers, his phone buzzed again. Blocked number. He hesitated, then answered. Silence. Then a voice. Not Blade's. Not the judge's. But cold. Calm. You think it's over? You think just because one piece fell, the whole game ends? Tyler didn't say anything. His hand tightened on the phone. Enjoy your peace while it lasts, Mr. Jackson. We're just getting started. Click. The line went dead. Tyler slowly lowered the phone and stared at the wall. This was bigger than a crooked judge. Bigger than one criminal. And somehow, he was right in the middle of it. And somewhere in the shadows, the real puppet master was still out there. Watching, planning, waiting, and the next move was coming soon. Tyler didn't sleep that night. The voice on the phone kept repeating in his head, like a broken record scratching across his brain. Enjoy your peace while it lasts, Mr. Jackson. We're just getting started. It wasn't Blade. It wasn't some prank. It was a warning. He stared at the phone on his nightstand, the call log still open. Blocked number. Nowhere to trace it. He'd already texted Ramirez, who told him to forward the number anyway, even though blocked numbers couldn't usually be tracked without a court order. Still, he said he'd put a team on it. Tyler could tell he was trying to calm him down, but Tyler knew better. This wasn't over. By morning, the house was dead quiet. The sun had barely started rising when Tyler tiptoed into the kitchen and poured himself a bowl of cereal. He didn't eat much. His hands were still shaking. Every sound outside made him flinch. A barking dog, a passing car. Even the creak of the fridge door sent his heart into his throat. Angela came in an hour later, wearing her scrubs. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept either. Morning, she said gently, running a hand through Tyler's curls. Morning, he mumbled. I have to go in, she said. They're short on nurses again. I'll walk Mia to school. Angela paused. Are you sure? I can call out. No, we can't let them scare us. You have bills, I have school. We can't live in fear. Angela stared at him for a moment, then slowly nodded. All right, but go straight there. And no earbuds. Stay alert. I got it, Mom, Tyler said with a soft smile. Walking to school was different now. Every step felt watched. Tyler kept glancing over his shoulder, looking at the rooftops, the parked cars, the windows of houses. Nothing seemed out of place, but his skin tingled like someone was watching. Mia held his hand the whole way. She didn't say much, but when they reached her school gates, she stopped. Tyler, she whispered. Yeah. Are bad people still after you? He crouched down and looked her in the eyes. Maybe, but I'm not scared of them. Promise? Tyler hesitated, then nodded. Promise. At school, the hallways buzzed with the same energy as always. Kids joking, lockers slamming, teachers shouting about being late, but Tyler fell out of sync, like he was walking through a movie where everyone else had the script, and he didn't. Jamal spotted him at the locker and jogged over. Dude, are you okay? I saw the news. That cop tackled Blade. I thought that guy was going to disappear for real. Tyler shrugged. It's not over. Jamal lowered his voice. What do you mean? Tyler looked around. Someone else called me last night. Said this whole thing is bigger than just Judge Mallow. They made it sound like there's a group of them. Jamal's eyes widened. Like a gang. I don't know, but I think they're working in the system. Judges, lawyers, maybe even cops. Yo, that's wild. I'm not crazy, Tyler said. Ramirez is investigating. But whoever these people are, they know everything. Jamal leaned in closer. So what do we do? We stay alert, Tyler said. And if anything weird happens, anything, we say something. Nothing weird happened all day. Until the final bell. Tyler walked out of the building and stopped cold. A sleek black car was parked across the street. Tinted windows. No plates. Exactly like the one Blade had escaped in. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared. The car didn't move either. Tyler slowly reached for his phone and started recording a video, zooming in on the vehicle. He walked backward toward the corner of the school lot, still watching. That's when a driver's side window rolled down halfway. A woman sat inside. Older. Blonde hair. Sunglasses. Expensive-looking suit. She stared right at him, then raised a single finger to her lips. SHHHH. Tyler's hand tightened on his phone. Before he could do anything, the window rolled back up and the car peeled away, tires screeching. Gone. Tyler called Ramirez right away. She was watching me, he said, his voice tight. She didn't say a word. Just shushed me, like she was warning me to stay quiet. Ramirez swore under his breath. Do you have a video? I got the car. Her face was blurry, but it's something. Good. Send it. And Tyler? Yeah. I think we're past the point of keeping this quiet. You said you were ready to help. I am. Then we need to go public. You need to tell your story. Name names. Show your face. We need pressure. Eyes. So whoever's doing this knows we're not scared. Tyler took a shaky breath. Going public meant everyone would know. The whole city. Maybe the whole country. And those people, the ones in the shadows, they'd definitely come after him. But he thought about Mia. About all the other kids Judge Mallow had sent away. About the ones who couldn't speak for themselves. I'll do it, he said. 2 days later, Tyler was on live TV. He sat on a couch in a small studio, next to his mom and Detective Ramirez. The reporter was calm, kind, and soft-spoken, but every question cut deep. What went through your mind when you were accused? Did you believe you'd be taken away? Why do you think Judge Mallow targeted you? Tyler answered everyone, with truth, with strength. He told the world what happened, how a judge tried to frame him, how a man named Blade came after him, how they tried to silence him, and how even now it wasn't over. When the interview aired, it went viral in hours. Support poured in from all over. Celebrities tweeted. Lawyers volunteered to reopen old cases Judge Mallow had ruled on. Kids from other towns shared similar stories. Tyler had sparked a fire, but he didn't know. He'd also painted a target. That night, after the interview aired, Tyler sat on the porch watching the stars. The city felt bigger than ever. And scarier. His phone buzzed. New message. Unknown number. He stared at it for a full minute before opening it. You were warned. Time to say goodbye. Attached was a photo of Mia at school from behind a fence. Tyler's heart stopped. He ran into the house, screaming for his mom. Angela was already running down the stairs. What? What happened? He shoved the phone into her hands. Angela covered her mouth, her hands shaking. Oh my God. Tyler grabbed his own phone and called Ramirez. We have a problem, he said. They're coming after my sister. Ramirez was there in 7 minutes flat. Sirens off. Lights off. But his face said everything. He burst through the front door, a bulletproof vest over his shirt, hand resting on his sidearm. Where's Mia? He asked. Upstairs with my mom, Tyler said, pacing back and forth in the living room. I told her not to let her out of the room. Good. Keep her there. Angela appeared at the top of the stairs, holding Mia tightly by the shoulders. The little girl's eyes were wide, confused, and afraid. What's going on? She asked softly. Tyler looked up at her. It's okay, Mia. We're just being careful. Stay with Grandma, all right? Ramirez pulled the phone from Tyler's hand and looked at the message again. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, finally, they're not just trying to scare you anymore. This is a full-on threat. They're escalating. Tyler swallowed hard. What do? We move her, right now, into protective custody. Angela's eyes widened. Wait, what? You mean like witness protection? Temporarily, Ramirez said, until we find out who sent that photo and where it came from. Angela hesitated. I'm not letting anyone take my daughter. Ma, Tyler said gently, if they're watching the school, if they got that close, we can't keep her safe by ourselves. Angela's jaw tightened. She looked like she wanted to argue. But she didn't. She nodded slowly. All right, she said, but I'm going with her. Ramirez nodded. We'll arrange it. By nightfall, Mia and Angela were gone. A plain black SUV with federal plates picked them up under cover of darkness, with Ramirez overseeing the transfer. The agent driving didn't say much, just nodded at Tyler, then disappeared with his family into the night. The silence that followed was deafening. Tyler stood on the front lawn, hands in his hoodie pocket, watching the taillights disappear. She was just a kid, he whispered. Ramirez stood beside him. She still is. I shouldn't have done the interview. No, Ramirez said firmly. You should have. And you did. You lit the match. Now we burn this whole thing down. Tyler turned to him. Then what's next? We draw them out. The plan was risky. Ramirez called it Operation Spotlight. The idea was simple. Make Tyler look vulnerable. Alone. Make it seem like his protection was gone now, that the media frenzy had passed. If someone was going to make a move, they'd think the time was now. Tyler would act normal, go back to school, go to the store, hang with Jamal, all while being watched from afar. Hidden agents would track every move, ready to close in on whoever approached. And Tyler agreed, even though every second felt like walking through a minefield. 3 days later, it happened. Tyler was walking home from school, book bag slung over one shoulder, earbuds dangling but unplugged. He took the usual route, across Hillman Street, past the corner market, then the alley shortcut that saved 5 minutes. He turned into the alley and stopped. A man was already there, leaning against the wall. He wasn't trying to hide. He wore a pressed gray suit, shiny shoes, and mirrored sunglasses that reflected the cloudy sky. He looked like a businessman who had taken a wrong turn, except for the fact that he was standing in a known shortcut kids used. Alone. Tyler froze. The man smiled. Mr. Jackson, he said smoothly. We finally meet. Tyler's mouth went dry. You've been watching me? We've all been watching. Ever since you stuck your nose where it didn't belong. You mean the judge who tried to frame me? The man chuckled. You really think Clarice was the mastermind? Please. She was a tool, just like Blade. Then who are you? A messenger, he said, stepping forward. With a choice. Tyler didn't move. His fingers were already near the small emergency tracker clipped inside his pocket. Ramirez had given it to him. Tap it 3 times fast, and the agents would swarm in under 60 seconds. You can end this now, the man continued. No more threats. No more fear. We'll leave your family alone. What's the catch? You stop talking. No more interviews. No more evidence. You disappear from the conversation. You go back to being a nobody. Tyler stared at him. And if I don't? The man smiled again. You won't like what comes next. Tyler tapped the tracker. 3 times. The man cocked his head, confused for half a second. Then, get on the ground. The alley exploded in noise. Unmarked vans screeched to a halt on both ends. Armed agents in tactical gear rushed in. The man's hand darted toward his belt, but 2 agents tackled him before he could pull anything. He hit the ground hard. A gun clattered out of his jacket. Ramirez walked in calmly, pistol raised. Well, I was wondering when one of you would show. Tyler didn't say a word. He just watched, as they yanked off the man's glasses and cuffed him. Back at the precinct, the man refused to speak. He wouldn't give a name. No ID. No fingerprints in the system. Whoever he was clean or trained to be. But his phone was not. Once the tech team cracked it, everything changed. Inside were encrypted texts, bank transactions, and, most importantly, photos. Lots of them. Courtrooms. Kids. Judges. Police officers. Every photo had a date, a code, and a dollar amount. It was a hit list. A network. Over 30 names. And one of them was Ramirez. He stared at the screen for a long time, jaw clenched. They've been operating for years, he said. Buying out judges. Framing kids. Mostly black and Latino. Pushing them through the system. Probably into private detention centers that pay them under the table. Prisons for profit, Tyler whispered. That's why they came after me. I didn't fit their numbers. Ramirez nodded. And you talked. By morning, the FBI had officially taken over. The case went federal. Tyler and his family were placed under full protection. Jamal, too. Other families were contacted. Judges removed from the bench. And behind closed doors, some of the most powerful people in the city were sweating bullets. But even with the arrests, the danger wasn't over. Because one name on that list had no photo, no ID, just a code name. Kingmaker. Whoever they weren't caught. Not yet. And they were still pulling strings from somewhere in the dark. A week passed. Tyler sat on a park bench in a protected area of the city, Ramirez beside him. "You should know," Ramirez said. "The man from the alley, we finally cracked the encryption on his second phone." "Yeah." Ramirez nodded. "It had a schedule." "For what?" "For you." Tyler's blood ran cold. "Your classes. Your routines. What bus you take. Where your sister's dance class is. When your mom's shift ends. All of it." "They were planning something," Tyler whispered. "They were planning everything," Ramirez said. "And I think Kingmaker's next move is already in motion." Tyler looked out at the sky. The war wasn't over. The shadows were still moving. And whatever came next, he would be ready. The day after Ramirez showed Tyler the schedule pulled from the phone, the world felt different. Quieter, like the city itself was holding its breath. Tyler couldn't sleep that night. Again, he just sat on his bed, laptop open, a dozen tabs open across the screen. Articles about private prisons, shady judges, missing court evidence, and whistleblowers who mysteriously vanished. The more he read, the more the same names started popping up. Companies he'd never heard of. Foundations with vague missions. People with shiny smiles and empty eyes. But one name kept showing up in whispers. Not directly, but in mentions. Buried in articles. A code name. Kingmaker. And the deeper he dug, the colder his room felt. Whoever Kingmaker was, they didn't just participate in the system. They built it. And now, they were coming for him. By morning, he had to force himself to act normal. Eat a little. Brush his teeth. Jamal met him out front, eyes darting like a rabbit's. "Dude, you sure you're okay going to school?" he asked, adjusting the strap on his backpack. "Better if I act normal. Feds are still watching. They just won't be up close today." "That don't make me feel any safer," Jamal muttered. Tyler forced a grin. "I'll protect you." They both laughed, but neither of them smiled. At school, things were weird. Kids whisper behind lockers. Teachers gave nervous nods. One even gave him a fist bump, like Tyler had won some kind of battle. And yet, as the day went on, he couldn't shake the feeling. Something was coming. It started during fourth period. Ms. Carter was handing out pop quizzes when the school's secretary's voice came over the intercom. "Tyler Jackson, please report to the principal's office." The whole class turned to stare. Tyler's chest tightened. Ms. Carter looked concerned. "Take your stuff, sweetie." He nodded, grabbed his bag, and walked the long hallway in silence. Every step echoed louder than the last. His mind raced. Did something happen to Mia? To his mom? Did the people behind this somehow? He pushed the thought away. He opened the office door. Mr. Holston, the principal, stood up. He was sweating, smiling. Too hard. "Tyler. Hey, we, have a guest here to see you." Tyler glanced toward the corner of the office. A man stood there. Expensive suit, silver watch, bald head, polished shoes, and eyes like a shark, cold, unreadable. Tyler stepped back a little. "Who?" "I'm Mr. Thorne," the man said smoothly. "I work with the Department of Youth Engagement and Scholarship Advancement. Heard about your story. We'd like to offer you a full academic scholarship. Private school, state-of-the-art program. Away from all this noise." Tyler didn't speak. Mr. Holston nodded quickly, clearly proud. "Sounds like a good opportunity, right?" Tyler studied the man's face. No emotion, no blinking. And suddenly, he remembered something Ramirez told him. They don't just scare you. They buy you. One offer at a time. Tyler's jaw clenched. "No," he said. Thorne raised an eyebrow. "Pardon, I'm not transferring. I'm not taking your scholarship. I know what this is." Holston blinked. "Tyler, this is a chance for you. To disappear," Tyler snapped. "To be taken off the map. Out of the public eye. That's what he wants." Thorne slowly smiled. "Well," he said, brushing invisible dust off his sleeve. "I try the polite way." He turned to the principal. "Let him go." Holston opened his mouth to protest, but the look Thorne gave him froze the words in his throat. Tyler walked backward out the door, heart hammering. He reached for his phone the second he got into the hallway. Dialed Ramirez. They sent someone, Tyler said quickly. To the school. A guy named Thorne. Fake scholarship. It was them. He knew everything. Get out, Ramirez said. Now. We lost the tracker team this morning. Something's interfering with the signal. You're exposed. Tyler didn't wait. He ran. Jamal found him sprinting past the gym. What happened? He shouted. Come with me. Now. The two of them didn't stop running until they were blocks away from the school. Tyler ducked into an alley and pulled out his phone, checking behind them every 2 seconds. His phone buzzed. New message. Unknown number. Didn't like the offer? You'll wish you had taken it. Attached was a video. Tyler's hand shook as he tapped play. It was grainy. Security footage. Angela Jackson, walking out of the hospital, carrying coffee. Then, a man in a maintenance uniform walking up behind her. They didn't speak, but as she passed, he slipped something into her purse. The video ended. Tyler's chest locked up. He called Ramirez again, voice breaking. They just sent me a video. Someone planted something on my mom. Where? At the hospital. Just now. She's still working. Ramirez's voice got sharp. Get to her. Right now. We'll dispatch a unit. Do not let her go home alone. It was a race against time. Jamal stayed behind as Tyler flagged down a bus and begged the driver to skip stops. He made it to the hospital in 15 minutes, breathless. He rushed through the sliding glass doors, nearly knocking over a nurse, and found his mom at the front desk, chatting with another nurse. Mom, he gasped. Angela turned, surprised. Tyler? What's wrong? Come with me. Now. Now. She followed him into a quiet hallway. He didn't waste time. They planted something on you. What? In your purse. I saw it on video. I think it's a tracker. Or worse. Angela's face went pale. Together, they opened the purse. Inside, hidden beneath tissues and a pack of gum, was a small black square the size of a coin. Ramirez's team arrived seconds later and confirmed it. It was a tracker, with a built-in microphone. They had been listening for hours. That night, the Jackson family was moved again. Not just to a safe house, but to a secure facility under FBI control. And this time, Tyler wasn't treated like a scared kid. He was treated like a target, like the bait in a game where the enemy was always 5 moves ahead. As he sat in the steel-gray briefing room, surrounded by agents and monitors, Ramirez placed a file in front of him. Thorne's face. You were right, he said. His name's not Thorne. It's Ellis Vaughn, former lobbyist, connected to 3 different corporations under investigation for illegal sentencing kickbacks. Kingmaker? Tyler asked. No, just another night on the board. Ramirez looked him in the eyes. But Kingmaker knows you now, and the deeper we dig. He flipped open the next folder. The closer we get to him. Inside was a photo. Blurry. Distant. A man in a black coat, stepping into a private jet. Taken yesterday, Ramirez said. He knows we're coming. He's trying to disappear. Tyler leaned closer, and something deep in his gut told him. He had seen that man before. But where? And why did it feel like the final piece of the puzzle was about to fall into place? Tyler couldn't sleep. Again, he sat on the edge of the small bed in the FBI's safe house. More like a bunker, really, with nothing but a flickering desk lamp and the growing storm inside his head. The photo Ramirez had shown him hours earlier was now printed and lying on the table beside him. A man in a black coat, blurry, head down, walking toward a private jet. Something about the curve of his neck, the way his hand gripped the briefcase, the tilt of his head. It itched at Tyler's memory like a splinter under the skin. He had seen that man, not just online or in passing. In person. He grabbed the photo again and stared. Black coat. Black leather gloves. The jet behind him looked military-grade. No logos. No numbers. Where do I know you from? He whispered. That hit him. Not where. When. Flashback. 3 weeks ago. Before the courtroom. Before the interview. Before Blade broke into their house. Tyler was at the hospital. Mia had a fever. His mom was working, so he brought her in himself. They waited in the ER for hours. Tyler remembered standing near the vending machines when a tall man in a black coat walked past him. Mia sneezed. The man paused, looked at her, then looked at Tyler, and smiled. It was just a second, But Tyler remembered thinking, why does a man in a $1,000 coat look like he belongs in a boardroom? Not an ER? Then the man kept walking, disappeared down a hallway. Tyler hadn't thought about it again. Until now. He stood up so fast a chair toppled behind him. Minutes later, he was in Ramirez's makeshift office at the safe house, shoving the photo in front of him. I saw him, Tyler said. 3 weeks ago. At the hospital. I know it's him. Same coat. Same face. He saw me and Mia. Ramirez narrowed his eyes. Are you sure? Yes. 100%. Ramirez sat up straighter. That hospital has cameras. If he was there, we'll find the footage. He tapped into the secured line, speaking into a headset. Pull security footage from East Briarwood General, ER Wing. 3 weeks ago. Scan all facial matches to this image. Then he turned back to Tyler. If we confirm this, we might finally have a real name. An hour later, the response came back. They had him. Clear video footage. The man in the black coat. Entering the hospital. No ID badge. No medical emergency. No reason to be there. The facial recognition pinged. And when the system returned the result, both Tyler and Ramirez leaned forward, eyes wide. Name, Arthur S. Maddox. Alias, Kingmaker. Former, senior advisor to the governor. Now, CEO of Stratmore Holdings. Ramirez swore under his breath. He's not just in the system, he said. He built it. Tyler's heart pounded. You're saying this guy, this Arthur Maddox, runs the whole thing? Private prisons, juvenile courts, education boards. He's connected to all of it. He's a reason judges like Mallow get placed. He's been selling justice like a business. And he's running, Tyler whispered. No, Ramirez said, eyes burning. He's fleeing. Because we've got him. We finally have enough. Ramirez stood, grabbing a go bag. We're going to D.C. 2 hours later, they were on a plane headed for Washington. Tyler had never flown before. His hands shook on takeoff, but his mind was racing too fast to feel scared. He kept flipping through files Ramirez had packed, documents, digital footprints, meeting logs, payoffs. Everything led back to Maddox. He's leaving the country, Ramirez said, reading updates from his phone. Our team tracked his jet. Destination unknown, but he filed a flight path under a fake name. If we don't catch him before that plane takes off, he'll vanish, Tyler finished. Ramirez nodded. And take the whole operation with him. By the time they landed, agents from multiple agencies were already moving. Tyler sat in the back seat of an armored SUV with dark-tinted windows, driving toward a private airstrip outside of D.C. The city buzzed around them, unaware that the man responsible for stealing hundreds of lives through false imprisonment was preparing to disappear forever. Why now? Tyler asked. Why flee just because of me? Ramirez looked at him. Because you didn't stay quiet. And the second you spoke out, others started digging. Reporters, lawyers, whistleblowers. He thought this machine he built was untouchable, until a 15-year-old kid exposed the rot. Tyler blinked. He hadn't thought about it that way before. He wasn't just surviving. He was fighting back. At 3:47 p.m., they arrived at the airstrip. Federal agents had the place surrounded. Radios buzzed. Jet doors sealed. No movement yet. Tyler and Ramirez stood behind a squad car as officers swarmed the runway. And then, the hatch opened. Arthur Maddox stepped out, still in that black coat, still calm, still smiling. But this time there was nowhere to go. Arthur Maddox, an agent shouted. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice, and trafficking of minors into corrupt judicial systems. Maddox raised both hands. No resistance. Just that smug smirk. As if it didn't bother him at all. As if he knew something they didn't. Tyler watched as they cuffed him, read his rights, and walked him down the steps. His hands were shaking. Not with fear this time, but with rage. He stepped forward. One of the agents tried to stop him, but Ramirez shook his head. Tyler walked right up to Maddox, 3 feet away. Maddox looked him in the eyes. Mr. Jackson, he said with a calm nod. Quite the nuisance, aren't you? You almost ruined my life, Tyler said. And my family's. Maddox's smile widened. But did I? Tyler's fist balled. You're going to rot in a cell, he said. Maddox chuckled. You think this ends with me? I'm just the head of one snake. He leaned in slightly. Cut me off, and 3 more will grow in my place. Tyler stared at him. I'll cut every single one. Maddox said nothing else. The agents led him away. That night, back in the safe house, Tyler sat beside Ramirez as the TV played the evening news. Breaking. High-level corruption scandal tied to juvenile justice system. Arthur Maddox arrested. Dozens of people were being indicted. Judges, attorneys, business partners. The system was crumbling. Angela and Mia were flown in under guard and embraced Tyler like they hadn't seen him in years. It felt like peace. Almost. Until Ramirez's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. He showed it to Tyler. The king is captured, but the court is still in session. Tyler looked up at him. They're still out there, he said quietly. Ramirez nodded. We've started a war, kid. And Tyler knew. The next chapter wasn't about running anymore. It was about taking the fight to them. The war had officially begun. The arrest of Arthur Maddox made headlines across the country, shaking the foundation of the justice system like an earthquake no one saw coming. But just like an earthquake, the aftershocks were already rolling in, and Tyler was standing right in the middle of them. He wasn't just a witness anymore. He was a symbol, a threat, and he could feel in every glare, every whisper, every quiet moment that stretched too long. They were watching again, even with Maddox locked away. Within 48 hours, more names were released. Corrupt judges, prosecutors, and administrators were being arrested across the country. Stratmore Holdings, Maddox's company, had been exposed for running shell corporations tied to private prisons and for illegally influencing court outcomes. Tyler sat in a secure conference room with Ramirez, Angela, and a group of federal agents who now treated him like a key part of the team. A digital map glowed on the monitor across the table. Red dots littered the screen like chickenpox. Each one is a confirmed case, Ramirez explained. Juveniles who were deliberately sentenced by corrupt judges into private facilities owned or funded by Stratmore or its affiliates. Hundreds of kids, one agent added, some as young as 10, pushed through fake trials, sentenced for minor offenses, and thrown into detention centers for profit. Angela's hands shook as she reached for a tissue. Some of them never got out, she whispered. Tyler couldn't speak. His throat tightened. It wasn't just about him anymore. It never was. He looked up at Ramirez. We have to do more. Ramirez nodded. We will. The plan was called Operation Clean Slate. Step 1. Use Tyler's case as the spark to reopen trials across the country. Every conviction connected to Judge Mallow and the other flag judges would be re-examined. Step 2. A press conference. A big one. Tyler would speak publicly again, this time not just as a victim, but as a voice for everyone affected. Step 3. Set a trap. Because even as the arrests rolled in, there were signs that not everyone was on board with coming clean. Some insiders were going dark, disappearing, deleting files, ghosting the feds. That meant someone bigger was still giving orders. Someone calling themselves the court. And now that the king had fallen, the rest of the court was circling the wagons. Ramirez put it plainly. They're planning a counterattack. If we're going to survive it, we need to draw them out. The press conference was scheduled for Friday at noon. It would be held outside the federal courthouse. A podium, cameras, the works. Tyler would speak, but it wouldn't just be a speech. The FBI would be monitoring the crowd, tracing communications, watching for any movement from the remaining network. They'll come, Ramirez said. If not in person, then through surveillance. They won't be able to resist watching. Tyler spent the night before practicing his speech. He didn't want it to be polished. He wanted it to be real. Friday came fast. The sky was gray and heavy as Tyler stepped up to the podium. Cameras clicked. Reporters murmured. Ramirez stood off to the side, scanning the crowd like a hawk. Tyler's heart thumped as he looked out at the sea of microphones and faces. He took a deep breath and spoke. My name is Tyler Jackson. I'm 15 years old, and a few weeks ago, a judge tried to frame me. The crowd went quiet. She wasn't alone. She was part of something bigger, a system built to hurt kids like me, to take our futures and sell them to the highest bidder. His voice shook, but he kept going. I was lucky. I got help. I got justice. But a lot of kids didn't. A lot of kids are still sitting in cells right now for things they didn't do. And I'm here today to say, it's not over. I'm not going quiet. None of us are. He looked directly into the cameras. And to the people who think they can keep hiding, we're coming for you. A beat of silence. Then applause. Real. Loud. Raw. But in the noise, Ramirez caught it. A movement. Someone slipping away from the back of the crowd. Tyler, he said into the earpiece. We've got one. Tail in progress. The man was wearing a maintenance jacket. He didn't clap. Didn't even look at Tyler. Just turned and slipped into a black SUV, which sped off the second the door shut. Ramirez was already in a car. Follow that vehicle. Southbound, for blocks from the courthouse. Tyler stepped down from the podium as Ramirez barked orders into his radio. He caught a glimpse of the SUV as it turned the corner. Then Ramirez's phone buzzed. He answered, paused, then swore. They jammed the tail. Back at the safe house, new footage was already being analyzed. The man in the maintenance jacket had been spotted at multiple previous crime scenes. Once outside the courthouse during Mallow's trial. Once near the facility where Blade had been held. But this time, the facial recognition worked. Name, Victor Crane. Ex-NSA. Discharged. Went private. Current status, unknown. Suspected enforcer for the court. He wasn't just muscle. He was trained. He was dangerous. And now he knew Tyler's face. That night, Tyler sat on his bed, watching the footage of Victor Crane disappear into the SUV. Over and over. Something about it fell off. Then it hit him. The license plate wasn't just fake. It was familiar. He'd seen it before. And a photo Blade had sent him. The one with Mia. The SUV parked near her school. Same plate. Same car. Victor Crane had been watching them for weeks. Ramirez burst into the room seconds after Tyler called him. You said the name Victor Crane, Tyler said. But I saw that SUV before. Back when Blade threatened my sister. Ramirez's face darkened. He's been in this longer than we thought. He placed a folder on the table. I wasn't going to show you this yet, he said. But now you need to see it. Tyler opened the folder. Inside were photos. Surveillance photos. Of himself. Leaving school. Eating lunch with Jamal. At the hospital. With Mia. Each photo was time-stamped. Each one taken from a distance. From angles that could only mean one thing. He'd been followed for months. They've been tracking me since before Judge Mallow's courtroom, Tyler whispered. Since before the party. Ramirez nodded grimly. They planned to use you long before you ever knew. Tyler leaned back in his chair, brain buzzing. Then it all clicked. The anonymous tip that led Ramirez to the courtroom. The strange appearance of Blade. The way Maddox got caught so easily. What if, Tyler said slowly, they wanted us to catch Maddox? Ramirez's eyes narrowed. Why would they want that? To protect something bigger, Tyler said. Something he didn't control anymore. Maddox was the distraction. The fall guy. Ramirez froze. And then his phone buzzed again. He answered it, listened, then slammed it back down. They moved the rest of the funds, he said. Maddox's accounts are empty. Cleaned out. They transferred everything to a private cryptocurrency wallet last night. So who has the money now? Tyler asked. Ramirez looked at him. The person we haven't caught. Tyler's heart pounded. The real kingmaker was still out there. Or worse. There was never just one. Then the email arrived. On Tyler's private inbox. No name. No subject. Just one sentence. Your story ends in 12 days. Attached was a countdown timer. Already ticking. 00:11:59:59. Tyler stared at it. Then looked up at Ramirez. We don't have time. No, Ramirez said grimly. We have 12 days left to stop everything. The timer ticked down. 00:11:58:02. Every second passed like a heartbeat in Tyler's ears. 12 days. That's what they gave him. 12 days until what? Until he disappeared? Until another attack? Until they silenced him for good? He stared at the glowing numbers on the screen, then pushed the laptop away and stood up. No, he muttered. We're not waiting. Ramirez was already one step ahead. By the time Tyler stepped into the command room, a war room now filled with agents, analysts, and screens covered in live data. The walls were covered in photos, maps, lists of names. They had finally peeled back the curtain. And what was behind it? A machine. Massive. Invisible. Centuries deep. Built on power, greed, and silence. The court isn't just a group of people, Ramirez said, pacing. It's an operation. Global. Maddox wasn't a founder. He was a manager. A handler. Tyler frowned. So who is the founder? We still don't know. But we found a name mentioned in old files. Buried in code, financial logs, and internal memos. He pulled up a document on the big screen. One word. Halberd. Tyler blinked. That's not a name. It might be a title. Or a code name. Or a system. But every document leading back to the court has it in the metadata. Halberd signs off on everything. And you think Halberd is the real kingmaker? Tyler asked. Ramirez didn't answer right away. Then, yes, I do. The next move was bold. Ramirez and his team traced digital breadcrumbs through encrypted emails, hidden forums, and deep web blacklists. It took 2 days and a string of lucky breaks, but they finally locked onto a signal. A hub, a physical building in downtown D.C., listed publicly as a nonprofit think tank called the Alton Foundation. But inside, firewall after firewall, top-tier security, private servers, and buried inside those servers were contracts signed by known judges, approved by school boards, and, most damning, direct links to offshore prisons run by Halberd International. They found it, the real network, the backbone of the court. Tyler watched from a surveillance van parked across the street as agents disguised as utility workers and maintenance staff entered the building. Everything was quiet, for a while. Then all hell broke loose. Get down! They're deleting the servers. Static erupted in the earpieces. Tyler listened, helpless, as agents shouted, glass shattered, alarms blared. One voice cut through the chaos. They're torching everything. Pull the hard drives. Room 3. Move. Minutes later, Ramirez returned to the van, breathless, carrying a steel case handcuffed to his wrist. Inside it, the core server of the Alton Foundation, with Halberd's logs. Please tell me we got something, Tyler said. We got more than something, Ramirez said, unlocking the case. We got a bomb. Inside the hard drive were emails from top city officials, judges, school administrators, all of them reporting to a shared encrypted inbox named Halberd 1. But more chilling were the dates. They weren't old. They were current. Messages scheduled. Plans made. Timers synced. And the final message? Set to execute in 12 days. The subject line, initiate clear down protocol, Tyler Jackson. The room went still. Ramirez leaned forward. This isn't just about shutting you up. They're wiping everything. Tyler stared at the message. A single line of text appeared in the email body. Erase him. Erase the case. Burn the trail. The next day, everything changed. Tyler's face was now national news. The story exploded. Overnight, he became a symbol, the boy who fought the court. Talk shows, op-eds, campaigns demanding change. But Tyler wasn't celebrating. He was preparing, because Halberd wasn't finished. And now, with just 10 days left, they were getting desperate. That night, Tyler received a video call. No caller ID. He almost didn't answer. Then he saw the thumbnail. It was Mia. His heart stopped. He accepted the call. But it wasn't Mia who appeared on the screen. It was a room. Dark. Concrete walls. No windows. And in the center, Ramirez, tied to a chair. Beaten. Bleeding. His mouth gagged. Tyler stared in horror. A voice came through the speaker. Calm. Precise. Digital. Hello, Tyler. Where is he? What did you do? We warned you, the voice said. And you didn't listen. You touch him again, I swear. You have 9 days to end this. Or he won't be the only one who disappears. Then the call ended. Static. Black screen. Ramirez was gone. Tyler's breath came in gasps. He stumbled back, knocking over the chair behind him. His mom burst into the room. Tyler, what's wrong? They got him, he said, voice shaking. They got Ramirez. Angela's face paled. What? Who? Halberd. The court. All of them. He looked up, fire building behind his fear. I'm not hiding anymore. Within the hour, Tyler was online. He posted video. No script, no edits, just truth. My name is Tyler Jackson. They've taken a man who protected me, and now they're coming for me, for my family, for everyone. But I'm done waiting, done hiding. If anything happens to me, or my family, or to Ramirez, you'll know who did it. A group called Halberd. Look them up. You'll find them. They want this buried. I'm digging it up. He paused. They gave me 12 days. Well, now they have 9. And I'm not stopping. The video went viral in under 2 hours. People everywhere were watching. And somewhere, deep inside a bunker no one knew existed, a figure in shadow stood before a wall of screens. A voice behind them whispered, "What now?" The figure turned slowly. "End it." They pressed a button. And all across the country, sleeper agents were activated. Files were burned. Evidence was deleted. And Tyler Jackson was marked. Priority 1. The war had just hit its bloodiest chapter. And Tyler was walking straight into it. Smoke. Sirens. Dark vans on the move. The nation watched in real time as everything began to fall apart. Tyler's viral video lit a fuse, and now the fire was racing toward every dirty secret the court had buried. But fire doesn't just reveal, it destroys. The day after his video dropped, 4 courthouses across the country were hit with mysterious blackouts. Fire alarms went off in the middle of active hearings. Entire file rooms were found soaked and shredded. Evidence gone. Surveillance footage erased. Cases vanished just like that. No fingerprints. No suspects. No doubt. The court was cleaning house. And the countdown kept ticking. 00:0, 8:0, 3:45. 8 days left. Back in the safe house, the air was electric. The server from the Alton Foundation had exposed more than just names and payments. It revealed something deeper. Something older. A pattern. Every 12 years, the network activated a protocol they called Clear Down. It wasn't just about wiping data. It was about starting over. New people. New courts. New puppet judges. Every trace of the old network erased. Dead ends and burnt bridges. Every whistleblower who got close disappeared during a Clear Down year. And now Tyler realized this wasn't a reaction to him. It was a scheduled purge. He was just the first one to fight back. But Tyler was done playing defense. He called a meeting. Angela sat on one side of the table, her hand tightly gripping Mia's. Jamal was there too, now a full part of the inner circle, helping sort through logs and connections. 2 agents from the cybercrimes unit sat quietly beside them, watching as Tyler clicked through images on a big screen. "We can't stop this unless we expose the core," he said. "Not just the people, but the money. The foundation that funds Halberd itself." "You mean Stratmore?" one agent asked. Tyler shook his head. "Deeper than that." He clicked one more time. An image appeared. An old crest. Latin words carved into it. A black halberd crossed with a scale of justice. Underneath, Vigilar Custodes. Watch the Watchers. It was the seal of an organization that predated Stratmore by decades. It was called the Ascendant Order, and they were the architects of the court. Most people never heard of them, Tyler explained. They don't file taxes. They don't run ads. They fund scholarships, political campaigns, even charities. But every dollar they spend goes to one thing: keeping the system rigged. Angela whispered, "So this is the real enemy?" Tyler nodded. "And they're about to vanish." Jamal leaned forward. "So how do we stop them?" Tyler looked up. His eyes were clear now. Focused. "We crashed their final meeting. According to the decrypted files, the Ascendant Order would be holding a private summit in 6 days at a private estate just outside Boston. The location? A mansion listed under a fake real estate firm, surrounded by forest, drones, and ex-military guards. Tyler knew what he was suggesting was dangerous. Insane even. But he also knew this might be the only way to end it. "We go in," he said. "We stream everything live. We show the world who's running this." The agents in the room exchanged glances. "You're just a kid," one of them said carefully. "You can't walk into a den of billionaires and expect them to fold." Tyler's voice was cold. "They'll fold when the whole world is watching." The next 5 days were spent preparing. Tyler trained with tech teams, learning how to use micro cameras, body mics, signal jammers. The FBI wired him with backup trackers, encrypted live feeds, and emergency overrides. They gave him an alias, a cover story. He'd go in as a messenger and initiate from one of the lower courts, carrying updates from the Maddox fallout. The kind of quiet servant these men wouldn't look at twice. Angela begged him not to go. Mia cried in his arms the night before. Even Jamal offered to take his place. But Tyler wouldn't let them. "I started this," he said. "I finish it." The day of the summit arrived like thunder. Black clouds rolled in over the hills of Massachusetts. The estate loomed like a castle carved into the forest, gates tall enough to block out the world, armed guards in suits standing at every entrance. Tyler rode in the back of a sleek SUV provided by the FBI. The agent beside him tapped his earpiece. "Comm check. We're live." Tyler nodded. He adjusted his tie, checked the tiny lens hidden in his glasses. "Let's go," he whispered. Inside the mansion, everything felt like a dream wrapped in a nightmare. The halls were wide, cold. Oil paintings of faceless men stared from the walls. A marble statue of a blindfolded judge loomed in the center of the atrium, its scale tipped unevenly to one side. Tyler was led into a room of 20 men. Old, white, rich, each one dressed like a senator or a king, and seated at the head of the long table. A man in a black velvet coat. He stood as Tyler entered. "Gentlemen," he said smoothly, "our messenger has arrived." Tyler kept his face blank. The man stepped forward and smiled. "I believe introductions are in order," he said. "I'm Bartholomew Kane." Tyler froze. He knew that name. CEO of an education reform company. Former ambassador. Philanthropist. One of the most trusted public faces in the country. And now, the true halberd. Kane's eyes were sharp as knives. "I've heard a great deal about you, Mr. Jackson," he said softly. "And I must say, I'm disappointed." Tyler said nothing. Kane gestured to the others. "You exposed our system. You rattled the cages. But you didn't kill the beast. And do you know why?" Kane leaned in. "Because we are the system. And systems don't die. They adapt." Tyler raised his head, calm and steady. "Not this time." Kane smiled. "You're broadcasting, aren't you?" Tyler blinked. Kane turned toward the window and raised one hand. Outside, a signal tower on a nearby van burst into sparks. The live feed cut. The cameras jammed. Tyler's heart stopped. They had known all along. He wasn't the hunter. He was the bait. Kane leaned in again. "This is clear down. And you, child, are its final act." Tyler lunged, grabbed the emergency signal pin on his collar, and jammed it down. Alarms shrieked in his ear. "Code red. Code red. We've lost feed. Tracker triggered. Repeat. Tracker triggered." Kane shouted something in Latin, and the guards surged toward Tyler. He ran. Through the mansion halls, down the staircases, heart hammering, vision blurring. Explosions erupted outside. The FBI had arrived. Bullets tore through the night as federal teams stormed the compound. Smoke. Screams. Sirens. Tyler burst through a side door into the courtyard just as a van screeched to a halt. Ramirez, battered but alive, threw the door open. "Get in." Tyler dove inside. They peeled away as helicopters thundered overhead. The estate behind them was engulfed in chaos. By nightfall, 23 arrests had been made. Bartholomew Kane was gone, vanished in the confusion. But the files recovered from the estate, enough to tear the entire network down. Back at the new safe house, Tyler sat with Ramirez and watched the news. Breaking. Shadow network behind juvenile court corruption exposed. International investigation launched. Billionaire, fugitive Bartholomew Kane wanted by Interpol. Angela hugged her son tighter than ever. Mia curled into his lap, whispering, "You did it." But Tyler shook his head. "No," he said softly. "We're doing it." Because the fight wasn't over. Kane was still out there, and the countdown wasn't done. The clock on the laptop now blinked. 00:01:00:00. 1 day left. Until the end. Of something. Tyler didn't know what yet. But he knew this. Tomorrow. He would face it. Whatever it was. 00:00:23:59. 1 day. That was all Tyler had left. The countdown hovered on the screen, a quiet threat with no explanation, no note, No warning, no what happens when it hits zero. But Tyler felt it, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. The pressure in the air, the silence before thunder. Everyone was trying to act normal around him. Angela kept making breakfast like it was just another Saturday. Mia watched cartoons louder than usual. Even Ramirez, now with a cracked rib and a stitched lip, sat on the couch, laptop open, eyes tired but trying to stay sharp. But Tyler couldn't eat, couldn't sit, couldn't breathe, because he knew something the others didn't. He hadn't told them yet. That message he got, the video of Ramirez tied to the chair, there was another part, an email that came right after, with a final line. The clear down isn't just about you. It's about the reset. When the timer ends, we launch. He hadn't shown Ramirez. He was afraid to, because if what he thought was true, the court wasn't planning to disappear. They were planning to restart. Tyler slipped out of the safe house while everyone was distracted. Just a hoodie, his phone, his earbuds, this time plugged in but not playing music. He walked the quiet street with his hood low and his head down. And every step was a choice. He could run. He could disappear. He could pretend none of this ever happened. But no, he wasn't built like that anymore. He was going to stop them. His destination, the library. Not just any library. Langston Public, one of the oldest buildings in East Briarwood. The place he used to go with his mom when he was little. The place where Judge Mallow once gave a public speech about discipline and order. The same building that recently appeared in an odd location scan from one of the FBI's hacked files. Why there? That's what he wanted to find out. Tyler entered quietly, nodding to the old librarian at the front desk, then made his way to the second floor. The tech room, empty as usual. He sat at the far computer and inserted the encrypted flash drive Ramirez had given him just in case. He opened the Halberd server, and what he found wasn't a file. It was a live feed, a map of the entire United States, with blinking red lights across every state. He clicked one, South Carolina, Juvenile Detention Center. Next one, Arizona, Private Courtroom. Next, New York, Foster Care Database. Each one had a line beneath it. Status, reset scheduled. The date? Tomorrow, 12 p.m. Exactly when the countdown would hit zero. And just like that, Tyler understood. It wasn't about him. He was just a distraction. The countdown? It wasn't a threat to his life. It was the activation of a new system. They weren't going underground. They were going online. A fully digital court. AI-generated judgments. Automated detentions. Synthetic evidence. All through fake nonprofits and government grants. Already funded. Already deployed. The future of injustice. Mass-produced. Silent. Unstoppable. Unless he stopped it. Now, he grabbed the flash drive, bolted from the library, and ran like the pavement was lava under his shoes. He didn't even stop for traffic. Cars honked. A biker swerved. He didn't care. He had to get to Ramirez. Back at the safe house, Tyler burst through the door. Everyone jumped. "What's wrong?" Angela cried, grabbing Mia behind her. Ramirez stood. "Where were you?" "They're not wiping files," Tyler said, breathless. "They're launching something new. They're digitizing the system." Ramirez's face darkened. "What?" "They're calling it Reset. It goes live tomorrow. I saw the map. It's not just a cover-up. They're automating the court, making it invisible." Tyler jammed the flash drive into Ramirez's laptop. "You have to see this." They did, and the room went cold. "I need access to the federal mainframe," Ramirez said, already on the phone with DC. "This isn't just criminal. This is warfare. Digital slavery." Within hours, the team had escalated the data. FBI, DOJ, Homeland Security. Tyler's discovery wasn't just a lead anymore. It was a ticking bomb, and there were 24 hours to defuse it. That night, Tyler couldn't sleep. Not because of fear, but because of hope. He had exposed his shadow empire, faced the monsters behind it, and now he had a chance, a real chance, to end it all. For good. He stared at the glowing numbers on the laptop. 00:0, 0:12:00. 12 hours. Until either the world burned quietly in the background, or everything changed. Just after sunrise, Ramirez pulled Tyler aside. "I need to show you something," he said. He opened a secure email. Inside was a message from one of the original founders of Stratmore Holdings, a man who disappeared 10 years ago. Until now, the message was short. Halberd is not a code. It's a key, a final access code embedded in the master server. If you find it, you can shut it all down. Ramirez leaned back. And you know who has the key? Tyler stared at the screen. Kane. He was right. Bartholomew Kane, missing since the raid on the estate, was still alive. And now, they had his location. An offshore server farm in Iceland, shielded by private security and diplomatic red tape. The feds couldn't go, but someone else could. Someone not bound by jurisdiction. Someone they'd never expect. Tyler stood. I'm going. Angela leapt to her feet. Absolutely not. But Tyler turned to her gently. Mom, you taught me to speak up when something's wrong. This is wrong, and I have a chance to make it right. Angela's voice cracked. You're 15. Ramirez stepped in. He won't be alone. We got eyes, ears, and backup. Tyler took a deep breath. This was it. The final step. He was flying to the edge of the world, to shut down a system that had fed on silence for decades. At 8 p.m., the plane touched down in Reykjavik. By 10 p.m., Tyler stood outside a glass fortress of glowing servers. The heart of Halberd. The reset key was inside. Kane was inside. And Tyler was going in. Alone. Inside, it was cold. Too clean. Too quiet. Rows of servers blinked and blew. Kane's voice echoed from the top floor. I admire your spirit, boy. Tyler climbed the stairs slowly, every step shaking with adrenaline. At the top, Kane stood with a sleek tablet in hand. He smiled. This is your moment, isn't it? Tyler nodded. The end of the court. Kane laughed. The court is just an idea. You can't kill ideas. Tyler held up a small device. The key says otherwise. Kane paused. His face dropped. Tyler tapped the device, and everything around them shut down. Lights, screens, data, gone. Forever. Back in the States, the countdown hit 0. 00:00:00:00. But nothing happened. The system had been destroyed. Reset denied. The court was dead. And Tyler was finally free. But just as he turned to leave, Kane said one last thing. You stopped the program, Tyler. But there's another. Tyler turned slowly. What? Kane grinned. Halberd was just the prototype. Tyler stared at Kane. The blinking lights of the server room flickered back to life behind them. Emergency systems humming softly in the silence. Kane stood with his arms behind his back, the faintest grin on his lips. Another? Tyler said, his voice tight. Kane nodded slowly. Did you think Halberd was the only project? We never put all our weight on one system. Redundancy is what keeps us alive. You're lying, Tyler snapped, gripping the small shutdown device tighter. Kane shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just planting a seed in your head. Something to keep you up at night. Tyler's blood boiled. He stepped forward, right up to Kane, and looked him in the eye. No, you don't get to scare me anymore. It's over. Kane raised an eyebrow. Is it? At that moment, the heavy sound of boots filled the stairwell. FBI agents, armored, armed, stormed into the server chamber. Laser sights lined up on Kane's chest as Ramirez stepped out from behind them. Alive. Standing. Eyes blazing. You're done, Kane, he growled. Kane simply chuckled, lifting his hands slowly in surrender. I was done the moment the boy showed up. Ramirez cuffed him without another word. This time, there was no escape, no helicopter, no network left to protect him. The king had fallen. And this time, he wasn't getting back up. Back in the States, the story exploded. Teen hero dismantles global corruption network. Bartholomew Kane captured. Tyler Jackson, the boy who stopped the reset. The media swarmed, but Tyler avoided them. He didn't want the fame. He just wanted peace. Justice was finally on the move. Judges involved with Halberd were being removed, tried, and imprisoned. New laws were drafted to protect kids from exploitation. The detention centers tied to Stratmore Holdings were shut down, every single one. And those scheduled resets canceled permanently. Tyler returned to East Briarwood a week later. He stepped off the private plane to a quiet welcome. Just Jamal, his mom, and Mia waiting at the gate. Mia ran to him first, nearly knocking him over. "You didn't die," she squealed. He laughed. "Not even close." Angela hugged him next, holding him so tight he thought his ribs might crack. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "You saved lives, baby." Jamal gave him a fist bump and a smirk. "I can't believe I let you walk into a hacker fortress." "You owe me." "I owe you cheesy fries," Tyler said. "Forever." They laughed for real this time. And for once, it didn't feel like laughing through fear. Weeks passed, then months. Tyler went back to school. Things weren't exactly normal, but they were quiet. The whispering stopped. The stares faded. And, slowly, people just saw him as a kid again. He joined a music club, made beats, started smiling more, started living. Ramirez was promoted. He stayed in touch, checking in once a week. Sometimes they met at the park. No suits, no files. Just talks. "You changed everything, kid," he said once, tossing a football to Tyler. "Nah," Tyler replied. "I just started it." Then came the final day in court. Tyler sat beside his mom in a packed courtroom. Kane, in a gray prison jumpsuit, was led into the room. Shackled, pale, smaller somehow. He didn't look at Tyler, didn't speak. The judge read out the charges. Conspiracy, corruption, attempted murder, kidnapping, unlawful sentencing, wire fraud, treason, life in prison, no parole. Tyler didn't cheer. He didn't clap. He just watched. And when it was over, he stood and walked out without a word. Spring came to East Briarwood. The trees bloomed again. Mia got an award in school. Jamal got accepted to a tech program. Tyler's mixtape got 10,000 plays online. And for once, life was just life. One afternoon, he sat on the porch steps, headphones in, beat machine in his lap, working on new track. Angela brought him lemonade and kissed the top of his head. "You good, baby?" He nodded. "Yeah, Mom, I'm good." That night, as he closed his laptop, Tyler noticed something. The countdown on his desktop, the one he never deleted, it was still at 0. He'd left it there on purpose. Not as a warning, but as a reminder. The system fell. The people rose. Justice wasn't perfect. Never would be. But for the first time in a long time, it was real. And Tyler Jackson was finally free.